Hi! We meet again. I feel like this is a little slanty. Let me see if I can fix it. So I'll wait for some people to hop on and I will continue to fix my camera here. Let's see if this works. Ooh. Oh, I don't know. I think it's probably better the other way. So we're meeting here on Facebook Live. As I said, I'm going to try to do it every day this week. And the real reason why I want to do it is because stuff's starting to get busy. And yay, hi, welcome. Hi, Rachel. And, you know, my practice is starting to get busy. We're coming up on what we call IEP season. And also I have the lab that's open for enrollment right now. And this is my alarm saying, don't forget to go live. And so I have people that are, you know, kind of contacting me with similar questions or similar sentiments or similar themes. And I thought I can share these little, I call them ditties, that I give to people with a broader audience, and maybe it'll help. So I hope that it will help. I'd love for you, just as we did last night, to comment and say, what role do you have at the IEP table? So are you a parent? Are you an advocate? Are you a teacher, a related service professional? What role do you have? Excuse me. And that will just kind of help me to tailor the content a little bit even better for you. So today what we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about this kind of theme that happens where people say, like, the rest of the IEP team doesn't listen to me anyway. Why would I do anything? Or everybody does their own job anyway. So like the PT is supposed to talk about gross motor stuff, and the OT is supposed to talk about sensory stuff. And I'm just the parent, or I'm just the reading specialist. Why would I talk about visual perception? That's something that the OT should talk about, that kind of thing. And that's not the way the team's supposed to work. And so I'm always saying that's not the way the team's supposed to work, and trying to empower people to really honor the obligation that Congress gave the entire team to participate as a team, to work as a team. And that's why yesterday I shared this book is still here, and now you see how organized I am. The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, because I read books about teams so that I know how to help people make their teams work better. It actually goes on that stack right there. I'm going to put it there. That's like the little teamwork stack right there. So following along with that theme is this kind of idea of like, well, I don't know if I'm supposed to weigh in on the IEP team. I don't know if that's my role. This is about as organic as it gets. You're going to hear Jack in the background here for a little bit. And so what I like to do is I like to really empower people to be involved. Now, if you feel like that's adversarial, just to even be involved, listen to what I talked about yesterday, because we kind of talked about trust and that adversarial, controversial, conflict-ridden kind of feeling on an IEP team. But what I like to do is to say to people, you can make a difference, and you are charged with making a difference. And why are you charged with it? Because Congress put the word parent in the IEP, in the federal law idea, over 450 times. They said, we want this team that makes this IEP and that meets annually and discusses evaluations and does all of the things, does all of the tasks that are in IDEA. We want that team to do that. And we want the team to involve these people. And you, if you're watching this, are one of the people. So, hey, buddy, can you be a little quiet, please? No. He said no. So we want the team. We want the team to involve an administrator, a gen ed teacher, a special ed teacher, a parent, the related service professionals. We want these people on the team. And so then we have to work as a team. And I'm going to give you 3 kind of tips, and one's almost like a warning that say, yes, we need to weigh in. We need to not only carry out our role on the IEP, but we need to participate and do so in a meaningful way. So the first thing I want to talk to you about of these three is the parent rights. Now, in my special education and advocacy lab, which is my 10-week training course, and Rachel put the link for registration if you have interest here in the comments. So in that, we go really far into the parent rights. For the purpose of today, though, I just want to focus on the parent rights that are the ones that say, like, participation. This is where participation needs to occur. And I want for you to think about it from the perspective of not only a parent, but from the entire team's perspective. And this is how I encourage my clients to think about this as well. So we're going to talk about 6 of those parent rights. So the first parent right is parent participation. There's literally a right. And this is that thing that they offer you at the beginning of every meeting, and they say, would you like this? Because there's literally a right that you have in order to know what your parent rights are. And the reason for that, by the way, I think is kind of cool. I'll geek out for just a second to prove that I'm a geeky lawyer. So the reason that they do that is because the school system is the government, right? So like the Department of Education is in the cabinet of the executive branch, the governor. And so if and children are entitled to a free, appropriate public education, public is the government's expense. And so they build in these safeguards that allow for parents to not get railroaded by the government, basically. That's what due process is. Due process just says, here's the process that protects parents from ourselves, because we're the Department of Education, we're the government, we're the schools, it's all the same thing. And so we need to provide some kind of buffer between the government and the parent to allow the parent to be able to ask questions. I oftentimes say it's kind of like an ombudsman. The ombudsman is a person within a government agency to whom you complain about that government agency. But their purpose is to make sure that there isn't, that the government isn't railroading the people that it governs. So that's kind of why these parent rights exist, if that makes sense. I try to put it into layman's terms, like as simple as possible. So the first one is parent participation. Parents have a right to participate. So no matter if you are the principal, the teacher, the other teacher, the fifth teacher, the PT, you should be looking, or the parent, you should be looking for ways for the parents to participate in the meeting. Doesn't mean the parents have to run the meeting, doesn't mean parents have to know everything about special education, but parents should be participating in the meeting. So, and in the entire educational process for the child. The second thing is parent consent. In these parent rights, there's a thing that says parents have to consent to certain things. So and this is really state driven, but most initial evaluations, reevaluations, a lot of services, the parents have to consent to those things. And so what that's saying is we want there to be a discussion. We don't just say, like, we're going to do this and you have to say yes. No, we have to have a discussion. So the law is saying we want parents to consent, and what's implied in that is there has to be a meaningful discussion, meaningful participation. The team has to collaborate. There's also this requirement that if schools are going to do certain things, they have to give parents something called prior written notice. So we have to say, we're going to do this, and we're informing you of that prior to doing it. So we're giving you some kind of prior notice in writing. Again, something else that says, we feel so strongly that this group of people needs to collaborate that we are requiring schools to tell parents things before they do it, certain things, right? Then there's access to records. Parents are supposed to have access to records. And so if you sit on the IEP team and you're the principal, then you should want parents to have records so that they can participate in the meetings. If you're a parent, you should want those records. You should want to have them and to keep them organized and to make them meaningful, to understand what's in them so that you can participate in a meaningful way on your IEP team. Parents also have a right to have things in an understandable language. And then, as I said, to have those procedural safeguards in place. So the intent of Congress in writing the law IDEA was for parents to be able to meaningfully participate in their children's education. we're offered that copy of the parent rights every single time that we sit down at a meeting. And at some point, you should probably read them. And I go through in the lab, I go through and I explain what each of them is and, kind of why they exist and how we can utilize them to our best ability and that sort of thing. But the point for today's talk is every single person on the team has a role, including the parent. And if we are not including the parent and encouraging parent participation, we're really doing a disservice to the child, because then the law is not functioning the way that the law was intended to function. And I oftentimes tell people, you make rules in your house, and if people use the rules in a way that isn't meaningful, if they utilize the rules in a way that isn't the way that you intended for them to use them, stuff falls apart, right? So the same thing happens with laws, and that's why we have to follow them. That's why we have to participate as a team together. So, taking that a little step further, as a team member, no matter who you are at the table, you have to collaborate with the other team members. And I like to tell people it is not like kumbaya all the time, and that is absolutely okay. But there's got to be some grit. There's got to be some, I call it relentless optimism that things are going to go okay. And so I would venture to say, I would love to know your role on the IEP team. If you will put it in the comments, it helps me to kind of tailor this to the audience that's watching live. But I would venture to say that a lot of you are parents that are watching live with me today. And so if you're the parent, the thing that you have to remember is you're the person that is the most knowledgeable about your child. In addition to that, I always take this conversation back to the purpose of the law. So special ed teacher, okay, that's good. We've got Carla here. Hi again, Carla. And I'm so glad that you are here from that perspective too, Carla, because I think it's really important to see how teachers and people in that role on an IEP team can bring parent participation and can really solicit it. Excuse me. So, in order to get that meaningful, I was talking about the purpose of the law. So the purpose of IDEA is in the very first page or 2 pages, depending on how you look at it, what format, internet, book, whatever. It says that the purpose of the law is to promote further education, employment, and independent living. Well, education, you could say, happens at school, but we're talking about further education, and if we're lifelong learners, we spend far more time in school than we spend out of school. So that happens out of school primarily. Employment probably happens out of school almost exclusively, and independent living probably happens out of school almost exclusively. So you could argue that 2/3 of the purpose of the law happen outside of school, after school, when the parents are the general contractors, when the parents are in charge. And I don't mean that from a guardianship standpoint, because I have opinions about guardianship. That's another talk. But what I mean is that independent living and employment are after school. It is vitally important that parents are involved in the education part, because they need to know what's happening for the after school time period of their child's life. And so you know your child, you know the book of your child, okay, so we've got another parent and then a volunteer advocate. That's awesome. I'm so happy that you're here too, Patrick. That's wonderful. At a small nonprofit. Wonderful. Welcome. So, your job is going to be to empower parents and to solicit parents and to encourage them and give them tools to participate in order to make the team work the way the team is supposed to work. So, you know the book of your child. It is okay, and it is healthy, and it is productive to ask questions of other people on the IEP team, to weigh into every single part. Yes, you're not a special educator, but it's okay and it's productive and healthy to say, I don't know, I've read about that strategy and I don't know that it's going to work for my child, because, with objective information, with the real reasons. Take the data, do the progress monitoring, go in, and you're saying it with objective information, but you're saying it in a way that is meaningful. Districts have to provide that kind of healthy discussion at meeting, and they have to facilitate it. So that kind of healthy conflict, constructive conflict is super duper important in the meeting. Okay, main idea number 2. You are part of a team. Teams work together. So it's an IEP team, depending on the name of your state. It might be IEP team, it might be an ARD, an ARC, a PPT, whatever it's called, it's a team or it's a committee. Or something else, but something else that means team or committee. And I don't know in ARD what that stands for. If you're in Texas or someplace that says ARD, tell me what the D stands for. I'm curious. I'll look it up when we're finished. They're all teams. And as the parent on the team, your job is to talk about how skills generalize at home. So this is what you learned at school, and is it also carrying over at home? Your job is to talk about how things work out in the community. Your job is to talk about progress and developments and ideas and strategies and all the stuff that you learned from all the other people that wrote the book of your child. So the therapists, the tutors, the doctors, all of those other people that you go to, your job is to bring that information into the meeting or into the IEP process, to collaborate, to bring all those people together. I always say, sometimes my husband will say, can you tell so-and-so blah, blah, blah? And I'm like, listen, I spent my whole life telling so-and-so blah, blah, blah. I have to tell, I get the information from the doctor, and then I have to tell my mom who does after school care, and I have to tell 3 different babysitters, and I have to tell his brother, and I used to have to tell 2 of my aunts that were so kind and did a lot of child care for us. And I literally, I had these things, they're right here, they're dear to me, and I wrote Jacktivities, and I put them on the refrigerator. But the communication is significant. It is a burden, frankly. But as a parent, it's so important because it gets all that information out. Doctors and tutors and outside therapists and stuff, they don't tell you that stuff so that you're just like, oh, okay, well, now I know. They tell you that stuff so that it can be implemented at school, and you are the catalyst. You are the person that can take it to the team. So it's vitally important that that information come, and you're the only pathway through which it can come. Nobody else is in that doctor's appointment with you that can take the information to the IEP team. That also has to, I know, you have to take it to the Medicaid waiver person, and you have to take it from the specialist back to the other specialist who takes it to the pediatrician who then changes the prescription. I know, I get it. It's a lot of communication. I do it too. But it is vitally important. And you see how when you take it from one doctor to the other doctor and then the prescription changes that you get somewhere? You have to do the same thing in school. That is our obligation. And it's really beautiful when it works. Other things that you can communicate about. Stresses. Data plummets. You look at the data and you're like, oh, I know why. Because we lost the favorite fidget. Or because we aren't sleeping well. Or because, oh, I forgot to tell you we changed medication. We have to talk about those stresses. Homework struggles. Other work struggles. Regression. If you work on goals, which you should, in my opinion, and you should take data, you should be communicating that. Skills that we've generalized in the community, I think I already said that. And then how, everything's coming from all the different therapies. It all comes in together. When you communicate it, you get results. If you don't communicate it, nobody knows. Nobody knows what they're supposed to be doing. When parents have a hard time understanding this, I usually say, okay, so imagine 90% of the time it's mom that comes to my appointment. So dads, if you're the one that does it all, that is amazing. Just do the opposite of what I'm saying. I'm going to use mom as an example. So suppose that mom's the one that took a child to speech therapy and learned a new strategy for eliciting T's. All you had to do is this, and now all of a sudden you got a T. So you go T. And so dad's going through the T flashcards, and the child's not doing anything, and the mom's like, oh, we have the T's done, and the mom's like, why aren't you going like this? I think I have something in my teeth. Excuse me if I do. See, we're informal. We're friends around here. And dad's like, well, you didn't tell me. How did I know that this strategy worked? Because you didn't tell me. I can't be held liable, or I can't. But look what the child missed because mom didn't say, oh, here's the strategy, right? So that happens at school. We have to do that. Usually that's an aha if you aren't a believer by the time I've said that. Okay, and then main idea number 3, and this is the one I told you I was going to have a little bit of a warning, and I apologize for the warning, but, and I don't like to warn people, I don't like to educate people with threats, but it's very important that you are aware. There are lines of cases that say, parent had the opportunity to fill in the blank, advise school of this strategy, to ask for this certain thing, to inform school of the regression, to do whatever, to act. Parents had the opportunity to act and didn't, and therefore we're going to rule in the favor of the school. So if you are a parent on an IEP team, or if you are encouraging a parent, or if you are a teacher and you really think that something should happen and that the parent, you need to know something from the parent in order to make things better for the child, it's super important that parents use their voice. That is such an important piece to the discussion. And so actually, Pete Wright, I did a podcast not too long ago, back in November, I think, and Pete Wright was on, and Pete goes into this in more detail, but there is this line of cases that says, if you don't, hang on. Sorry, I think if I get a call and I don't decline it, then you can't hear me. So if you don't participate in the discussion, if you don't raise the issue, if you let things go for an unreasonable amount of time, then the courts might say, well, you had your chance and you lost it. And that's a super duper important thing. So the thing I want for you to take away from that is participation is not only a right, it can be an obligation. And that is a super duper important motivating piece. And so I empower you to work as a team, to weigh in on meetings, to ask questions of the other people, to push one another into that healthy discord, into those sometimes uncomfortable discussions. Now, if you like what I am talking about in these Facebook Lives, I would love to share with you the Special Education and Advocacy Lab. That is my 10-week online training course. So what we do in the lab is we go, and Rachel just put the website down if you want to check it out even more. What we do is we go start to finish in special education. So I give you a basic but very thorough legal background. We go through the legal stuff. We go through those parents' rights. We go through some of the law. Then we dive into the IEP, and we get kind of deep into the IEP. We look at all the different parts of the IEP. And I talk about, this is what I love in this section. This is what I don't love in this section here. Some pitfalls to look for. Then we go into goal writing. We talk about specially designed instruction. We talk about progress monitoring. I help people understand progress monitoring from the parent's perspective. So if you're a parent taking the course, I explain how to read it, how to take your own data, all of that stuff. And then we spend some time looking at what it looks like to go, well, I also do some stuff that's like parent organization. So building your binder, communication tips, like my Sunday email that you might have heard about, those kinds of collaboration kind of stuff, like my teamwork stuff. And then we actually look at due process, and we look at what due process looks like, what mediation looks like. And the reason we do that in the lab is because I like for you to understand what it looks like to go to court, because the best way to stay out of court is to always prepare for court. And so we talk about expert witnesses and information that we bring in due process and how we get organized for due process, what a complaint looks like, what the process even looks like. Where, one of my students said they were just surprised to know, like, where the administrative law judge sat. Like, what does it look like, a courtroom kind of a thing. And so that's what we talk about in the lab. It's 10 weeks each week, or it's 10 modules. Each module is a little less than an hour. So in about 8 hours of video, you can get trained start to finish. Hop over to the website and take a look if you're interested. I'm happy to answer any questions. We'll be back on here tomorrow night. And this is not my document with the notes. I wish I could foreshadow for you. I'm flying by the seat of my pants a little bit this week. I'm still on like conference decompress. But I will see you tomorrow night at 5. I got another ditty for you. And any questions, any comments, I would love to connect with you. And I would also love it if you would share this. I'm sure you've got friends that would like to be empowered and inspired, and I'd like to be here as a resource for that. So Patrick, thank you for showing up. I would love to connect with you. I'd love to hear more about the organization that you work for, and have a great night.